Hello, bonjour, namaste, ni hao, and ohio everybody. What is going on? It is Gale here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi Fulland of Water and Light video. And today we are here with the preview of the short story that is going to be accompanying the limited edition of the game. Of course, we're only a month away from the game, by the way. It would have been this month, it would have been releasing, but because of the delay to Season 5, the game has also been delayed to March 13th. Of course, we go over it in a separate video. You can go and check out that video, or you can wait until the end of this video and check out the playlist of everything to do with Danmachi Fulland of Water and Light. But nonetheless, we have the preview of the short story that is going to be accompanying the limited edition of the game. It is going to be covering the Knight Fulland, of course, one of the new main characters that is going to be appearing in the game, of course, right? One of the 3 new characters that's going to be appearing in the game. And of course, it is obviously following the heroic tale Fulland of Water and Light. This is the story we also learned about in Danmachi Season 5, of course, right? And obviously, we're going to basically see an expansion upon it in, of course, the game. And also, I will assume also there's going to be some ramifications in the present because, of course, we're playing as Belle and Eyes in the game, so it makes sense that we're going to be seeing, you know, something happening in, you know, the current timeline that is based on, of course, the Age of Heroes heroic tale. Now, of course, if you guys going to enjoy this video, remember to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel for more content, and once again, let me know in the comment section down below, are you guys planning on picking up the game or not? I'm quite curious to see what you guys are planning on doing. I know a lot of you guys have already said multiple times that you'll probably just read the story online and or watch somebody play it, and that's about it. Which, by the way, you can come and watch me play it. I'll be playing it day 1, of course, right? I don't know if I'll finish it off in one day. We'll have to wait and see on how long the game actually is, but I will be there day 1, so if you want to follow me playing the game and if you want to watch the story as well, join me. I will be playing the game from day 1 as well, so be sure to be there, of course, right? But yes, without further ado, let's check out the short story preview. Of course, we have a nice image of Fulland right here. They basically put it out in Japanese, as you can see here, like effectively 8 pages of story. Well, technically 7 pages of story or preview, basically, because the first one is literally just the title. So let's take a look at, of course, the English translations. Big shout out to whoever did this. I actually don't know if there's somebody who specifically, you know, actively did it. Big shout outs to them, whoever did this. Let me know in the comments if you did this. I'll pin your comment or heart your comment or something like that. But yeah, let's take a look and see what is in store for us in this preview. Fulland Howells was born in a remote frontier town. However, in this era, all towns without exception were subjugated to destruction and sorrow by the monsters overflowing from the Great Hole. Of course, the Great Hole being the dungeon, effectively. Fulland's hometown, where ordinary people dwelled was no exception. I'm struggling to speak there. Its vitality had faded, and its walls had bore countless scars, and it was a flickering flame of a community that could be extinguished at any moment. Every man, even a child, had to bear arms. Even if they could not win, they had to become shields to protect the women and children. Following the teachings of his father, who had died in battle, leaving him and his mother behind, Fulland too took up the sword. Fulland possessed undeniable talent. Otherwise, a child who had mastered the sword before farm tools would be nothing but an anomaly. Ironically, he was born in the right era. He felt his first monster at the age of 6, suppressing his fear as he dashed across the battlefield, weaving between the legs of adults and fangs of claws of monsters, before driving his sword into the off-guard leader of the beasts. Its chest pierced, the leader turned into ash and crumbled away. The monster horde, thrown into confusion, fled, while the astonished adults praised the boy. Fulland's first hero was a feat worthy of the name he would later carve into history, both as a hero and as a knight. Fulland possessed extraordinary talent, but more than that, he had unwavering will. This is a classic hero story, by the way, it seems like, at least in terms of Fulland, of course, right? It does seem like it's just a classic character that we're going to be getting, a classic knight, effectively. It's not like Argonaut, who was a fake hero in the sense who actually was a real hero, but still a fake hero nonetheless, if you know what I mean. And then you of course had Dim, who was also similar in that sense, a fake hero in a way, but you know, a hero nonetheless, you know, in that sense kind of situation. Obviously, Fulland is a proper hero, it seems like, in this situation. A classic knight, as they say, you know, a classic knight. A powerful, but obviously had unwavering will. We were on that one. A powerful conviction, and to protect his only remaining family, his mother and his childhood friend. Fulland, you're heard again. In the war-torn town where the boy lived, there was a girl who shone with an almost unnatural radiance. Her name was Belinda Altanatsa. This one is the pink-haired girl, or the orange-haired girl. I'd say it's more pink hair basically, but it's a pink-haired girl. The pink-haired girl is Belinda, of course, right? Because remember, the three new characters, you have Fulland, the knight, Belinda, the saint or priestess, and then you have, of course, the spirit, Dine. A delicate, ordinary human girl, destined to grow into a beautiful woman if she could grasp a hold of the future. Belinda was one of the few remaining nobles. Though her family had since lost its former influence, they had once ruled the region. Even after countless lands and settlements were seized by monsters, leaving only Fulland's town as their last stronghold, her father desperately continued to unite the people. He had once been saved by Fulland's late father and had been his closest friend. That Fulland and Belinda, born in the same town on the same day, shared a bond deeper than mere childhood friendship was, in a way, only natural, even in an age of despair. Belinda, I'm fine. Worry about everyone else. No, my father and the others are stronger than you, Fulland. You come first. Whenever Fulland returned from battle after driving the monsters, Belinda always would be the first to find him. She would rush to his side and place his hands over his wounded body, enveloping him in warm light. At that moment, Fulland's wounds began to heal. Belinda possessed a special power. It was the light of healing. By placing her hands over an injury and concentrating, she could close wounds, from minor cuts to grievous gashes. Belinda was a true human, not one of the magical races like elves and fae who wielded spells, let alone one of the mystical spirits known as the bearers of miracles. If anything, she was more akin to the legendary knight who once bore a spear with his crimson gaze. Of course, this is Fulland. This is Finn. Sorry, I was like Fulland, Finn. This is of course Dim/Finn from Knights of Fianna, of course, right? Or Fianna in a way, kind of. It could also be that as well. In some distant future, those who could carry the power of prophecy. A gift even the gods could themselves not foresee. This is, of course, in reference to Cassandra. I do wonder, as the daughter of the Lord and the wielder of an extraordinary gift, the people revered Belinda as a saint. I guess you could say that maybe, like how we have, of course, Belle with Argonaut, Orna with Tiona, Elmina with Tione, and so on and so forth, Lazar with Raoul and stuff. I do wonder if Belinda's supposed to be like the predecessor to Cassandra. I guess that could be the case, in the sense of like she is the incarnation of Belinda, basically Cassandra, that is. Her presence was one of the main reasons the town's morale remained high, and why, despite the looming threat of monsters, it had not yet fallen. You have even more wounds today. Please, Fulland, don't push yourself too hard. ... It's not possible. If I don't push myself, my mother and you will die. Fulland, you idiot. No matter how much she healed him, some wounds would always remain as scars. Belinda gently traced the marks of his life or death battles on his arms, pleading with him, but Fulland answered with his usual blunt honesty. Furious, Belinda furrowed her delicate brows, shouted at him, and ran off. It was a scene that had played out countless times. Back then, Fulland had no idea what the right answer was. As much as you do care about me, I care about you too. Whether the feelings he had for Belinda were love or merely familial affection, the young Fulland couldn't yet understand. Raised in a brutal environment, forced to specialize in battle, he was awkward, rigid, and oblivious to the subtleties of human emotions. He lacked the emotional growth that should have come naturally. Even so, his desire to save the town had raised him was real. His wish to protect Belinda was true. She had taught his unsmiling self how to smile, had healed both his body and heart. He swore that no matter what, he would protect her. But that oath was shattered, effortlessly. By the arrival of monstrous hours, the town Fulland and the others had fought so hard to defend fell in an instant, all because of a single dragon. The moment its fiery breath melted the walls, a horde of monsters surged inside. The women and children were the first to be devoured, and there, in the midst of the carnage, among the victims, was Fulland's mother. Shit, that's crazy. I do wonder, dragon. It can't be I don't think it's the one-eyed black dragon. I think this is just a dragon. I think one of the things we need to realize in Danmachi, I think, is that the strongest monsters are basically the dragons, effectively. And so having a dragon like this potentially coming into play, yeah. I mean, we've seen it even in Knights of Fianna. We saw it in Astray Record. One-eyed black dragon. We know that there are many dragons, Delphine and so on and so forth, that are Balor, of course, as well. These are strong monsters, and so it does seem like dragons. I don't think this is the one-eyed black dragon, but this is a dragon that's extremely strong. Maybe this could be a final boss we see in the actual game, potentially. We'll have to wait and see. Even as he was consumed by despair, the town's warriors fell one by one. Their defenses were crumbling. Belinda, Fulland, grah! The town was engulfed in flames, dyed red with fire and blood, and monstrous shadows danced in a grotesque feast of flesh. It was a scene from hell, one that a boy not even 10 years old was powerless to stop. Tears of blood streaming down his face, Fulland ran through the burning town. He found Belinda just moments from becoming a monster's prey and saved her. With a furious slash, he tore the creatures apart, but that was as far as his miracles would go. As he pulled the trembling, sobbing girl along, desperate to escape, the dragon appeared before them, blocking their path, its gaping maw opened wide, preparing to unleash a fiery torrent that would reduce them both to ash. Fulland held Belinda tightly, accepting death, and then, it was not a miracle but a knight's sword that fell between them and the beast. The dragon which had withstood all of Fulland's attacks without a scratch had its head cleaved in two in a single flash of night. Stunned, Fulland and Belinda turned their eyes towards their savior. A lone knight astride a war horse, so massive it could be mistaken for the beast itself. A colossal sword, silver armor, and a billowing cape. Fulland couldn't look away from the knight's broad back as he stood between them and death itself. What followed was nothing short of a legend. The knight single-handedly wiped out the invading monsters, every last one. And so in the wake of destruction, Fulland and Belinda were rescued. He was called the Lion King. With his lion-colored long hair fitting his name and the pride of a knight who commanded many warriors, he was a true hero of the time. A man who had once successfully reclaimed the fallen kingdom's land, and in other words, he was the real hero. I do wonder, Lion King, right? So that could be also the incarnation of Leon Vardenberg. Of course, you don't know who he is. He's coming up in volume 19 and 20. Very, very important character that's going to be coming up. And based on this saying, it might be him actually. It might be his incarnation. So we're learning more about also like how this Age of Heroes story relates to the present timeline. Similar to how we had Argonaut and of course Knights of Fianna as well, right? What a strong sword. What a magnificent back. To protect Belinda and everyone, I needed that. He was no less than the Fianna Knights, who had once paved their way to the Great Hole. Such was the strength that with which Fulland's heart was shaken. The figure of the Lion King, who had slain dragons and protected them, gave a clear direction to the heart of the boy who had only once known how to fight. After being saved with the few remaining survivors of the town, Fulland, though still in his pain, forgot the throbbing in his body and blankly kept his eyes on the Lion King. I'm sorry I couldn't save them. The words had left his mouth, Fulland still staring at the man who couldn't save the mothers, offering an apology, who was caught off guard as he realized something about him. I won't accept your apology. Instead, make me a knight. Besides the surprised Belinda, Fulland begged the Lion King. At the westernmost edge of the continent, where the sealing of the Great Hole had begun, a new journey was starting. While many heroes were becoming famous, it was the noble and powerful knight standing before him who Fulland admired the most. Captivated by his strength and nobility, Fulland found the path he would follow. And so a new knight was officially born, Fulland Howells. A boy who had no name, merely a village youth, who was recognized for his strength and talent and above all, his strong will. He was granted the title of the one who continues forward by the Lion King, and thus he joined the ranks of the knights, albeit at the very bottom. Fulland, you idiot, selfish, sword geek. Sword geek is crazy. Isn't that last one irrelevant? After the formal night ceremony had ended, Fulland, exhausted and overwhelmed by the solemnity of the event, was greeted by angry shouts of his childhood hero. The village where they had grown up had been burned to the ground, and despite the frustration, Fulland and the few survivors were forced to leave. They were taken in the group led by the Lion King, and found refuge in a territory aiming to restore the fallen kingdom. In a simple, no-frills room within a sturdy fortress, far from being lavish, Belinda, who had been waiting for Fulland's return, exploded with all the complaints she had been holding in. You actually became a knight. It's a time when monsters are everywhere. You're going to be sent out into all sorts of battles. Anyone who can fight should be out there, and that's what I think. No, it's what I wish for, Belinda. I know, that's always been you. You'd do anything to protect us, even if it means getting hurt yourself. I think that's wonderful. I think it's beautiful. But everyone misunderstands you, thinking you're cold. Huh? I know you're kinder than anyone. You could have at least talked to me about it. But if I'd consulted you, you would have definitely stopped me, right? Of course I would. Then my wish wouldn't have come true. You're so noisy. It's much better than facing danger. If you're gonna do that, then you should stay by my side, never leaving, always with me. Belinda, that's probably impossible, and you're just being a tyrant. I love how Belinda's just so like calming in that sense, and Belinda's just losing it slowly but surely. Ever since I started being called a saint, I've kept my behavior in check, but now it feels like the wild girl I knew has been returned. I know that you've been pushing yourself, healing the injured, and now I'm torn between whether I should be happy or worried. In the end, I chose to be worried. You don't understand how worried I am, Fulland. The thought of you having to fight those terrifying dragon-like monsters again, it makes me I'm not you, so I don't fully understand. Then let me tell you, I'm so scared about, I dream every night about you not being able to move, that you're going somewhere far away. I'm always afraid that this is going to become a reality. If you can't sleep well, you should drink Angel's herb tea. That's a bit much. That's not what I meant. I'm sorry. Fulland is just unemotional, it seems like. He has got no emotion, which is unfortunate in that sense. But Fulland's clumsy words, lacking in emotional awareness, only added fuel to the fire. So Fulland decided to deliver another piece of news, one that could be considered an achievement. But because of this, I was able to become your fiancé. Your father just told me that earlier. He said that as a child who only swings around sword, he couldn't let you marry me. But as a knight, he had no choice. Belinda was, after all, the daughter of a noble family. Even in these times, nobles still valued bloodlines. They sought to protect their families with the power and status of their connections. Though Belinda's father watched the children's relationship with a smile, he had always been hesitant about the engagement that young Belinda had begged for. He never nodded in agreement, and while he admired and appreciated Fulland, the son of his friend, and had feelings of gratitude and guilt towards him, he was still the head of a noble family. He had hoped to find a more powerful protector for Belinda in the future. However, after losing his wife, family, town, and now under the protection of the Lion King, Belinda's father saw Fulland's knighthood ceremony as if he were watching the knightly rise of his own son, shedding tears and accepting him. He said, "Take care of my daughter." When Belinda heard that, so her face bloomed in joy, turning a soft pink, which is quite surprising in that sense of like, with us knowing what the story was ahead of time, right? With Dine and Belinda and Fulland, right? Is that it was a love triangle basically, right? Dine was madly in love with Fulland to the point where she couldn't handle the rejection and, you know, stayed away from him, and then obviously made a big sacrifice at the end of the day to protect him nonetheless, right? So in that sort of situation, I guess the whole idea of a spirit understanding the idea of an engagement and fiance would have been unlikely in that sense. But yeah, she stared at Fulland with an expression that seemed to say she couldn't believe it. But before leaping into his chest, after some hesitation, Fulland wrapped his arms around her slim back. "That's unfair to say something like that now. I'm sorry, but I thought it was better to tell you soon." "It is. Is this really okay, Fulland? What is it? Am I really going to be your fiancé, become part of your family?" Fulland looked down at the girl, buried against his chest. Her face flushed with heat as she tried to hide it. With clear eyes, he spoke from his heart, revealing his true feelings without a hint of falseness. "My father and mother are both gone. I don't have a family anymore. So if you'll become my family, Belinda, I'll be so happy. I'll protect you more than anyone else." Fully aware of his clumsiness and lack of eloquence, he spoke with care, putting all his feelings into every word as he addressed the girl. Belinda, who had been staring at him in shock, flushed red. Her eyes gradually became moist, and as she squinted, she leaned into his chest once more before gently lifting her face. "Fulland, Belinda." She looked up at the boy with loving eyes. Her modest feet, wrapped in worn shoes, lifted with feeling as her heel rose. The two lips drew closer. "But as fiancés, though unmarried, is it alright to kiss?" Fulland already furrowed his brows in a troubled expression and said something awkward. "I'm already a knight, and I must be sincere. As a saint, you too must remain chaste." Before he could finish, Belinda's face flushed again, but this time it was for a completely different reason. It turned bright red, like a ripe apple. "You idiot, Fulland!" Once again, the boy was scolded. But yeah, there we go. So then, of course, they had started laughing, they started smiling, and then Fulland's eyes softened as well, and then they exchanged vows of engagement. Once Fulland became a knight, his life had become one of constant upheaval. Every day he went with the Lion King and knightly order to hunt down monsters. When cries for help from the people were heard, they headed west. When they heard the roars of dragons shaking the earth, they headed east. The knights, bearing the lion's flag, traveled tirelessly from one corner of the world to the other, fighting the grotesque creatures that threatened humanity. Once known as guardians of the continent, the Fianna Knights had once defended against the relentless monsters emerging from the Great Hole, which produced them without end. The devastating loss of humanity caused by the Great Invasion operation, which was the root of all chaos, was now being mitigated by the Lion King and his group. There's going to be a big importance of this Lion King, and I do wonder if we're going to see him maybe in the game as well, to be quite honest. But yeah, this seems to be also taking a great importance in the Knights of Fianna story, which makes sense because the Knights of Fianna were the ones to actually take on the dungeon for the very first time, or at least the surface level of the dungeon, when the monsters were coming up slowly but surely, right? Because of course in Argonaut it was the whole case of like, there was the Mino, and it was very much tempered but there were monsters still running in and about. But of course, the primary focus was on the Mino and the king and everything, right? It was a more human story in that sense. But yeah, even if I myself were a mere imposter, as someone who bears the title of the knight, I must atone for them, the Lion King had said to Fulland, speaking of the need to repay the lives lost. He was unable to participate in the great invasion operation to eradicate the terrifying hordes of giants that had attacked the reclaimed lands. But Fulland, moved by the noble glades of the Lion King, simply nodded and expressed his agreement. The grand expeditions to exterminate monsters continued year-round without pause. The boy, who had been fighting along on his own until now, could no longer afford to remain immature. He fought alongside many knights, enduring real battles and honing his skills. The knights under the command of the Lion King were proud and above all of noble character. They treated the newly inducted Fulland like a young brother or son, imparting various pieces of knowledge and techniques to him. Fulland's rise was swift. True to his name, the one who continues forward, he never stopped pushing ahead, mastering skills at a pace that was hard to match for any normal person. His fellow knights sometimes stood shoulder to shoulder with him, and at other times supported him, praised him greatly. Unlike the fierce mighty slashes of the Lion King, Fulland's sword was like flowing water, cold as a frozen glacier, elusive like a stream that cannot be caught. He wove through the ranks of monsters, bewildering them and cutting them down with a silent flowing sword. The boy, whose inner fury turned into absolute zero battle intent, slaughtered the enemy forces and soon was known as the Knight of Water. His fame was spread among the people and alongside that of the Lion King. Throughout all of the battles, Fulland was never without the presence of the saint. Oh, so Belinda had always joined the knights on the expeditions, and when Fulland had come back from the fierce battlefield, she'd be healing the wounds of the fighters, and he was taken back in shock, basically. Fulland and her father both continuously told her to stay and wait for their return in restored land, kept getting increasingly frustrated. Though you refuse to listen to my pleas, you insist on pushing onto your own wishes onto me. What a noble, selfless knight you are, she responded sarcastically, her words dripping with biting politeness. Fulland was taken back by a response, and all the knights who were eavesdropping were laughing at the exchange. Even the Lion King had to curl his lips in a faint smile. He accepted that the noble will of the saint with a level of dignity that rivaled any knight's own. When Fulland was reluctantly given a permission to accompany her, his bitter expression became a source of amusement of the knights, and Belinda, who had been long concerned about his reckless actions, felt a mischievous satisfaction. Belinda's healing power also became just as invaluable as Fulland's swordsmanship, bringing blessings not only to the knights but also to the lands they visited. Her healing abilities earned the respect of even the haughty fairies, who were otherwise known for their arrogance. During their journey, both Fulland and Belinda grew. Fulland, though still slender, had become a gallant knight worthy of the name Knight of Water, and Belinda, who had been once a mischievous girl, blossomed into a graceful and poised woman. Though they saved countless people and lands, together they saved countless people and lands with Fulland's valor, sword, and Belinda's unwavering support. By the time Fulland had grown into a young man capable of wearing armor with ease, he was entrusted with leading one of the knightly orders. He left the Lion King's side and became the commander of his own group, dedicating himself to helping those in need. The pair's efforts as the Knight of Water and Saint continued without pause. Their power only grew, and so did their fame. Alright. Done by the girl who had been urged by her father. Okay, this is all just a copy paste, basically. This is just a copy paste, so this is nothing too crazy. Done by GOP556. I just copy pasted the thing. I respect that. I respect that. So big shout outs to GOP556. So this was basically the origin story of Fulland, and Belinda. We still don't know how Dine comes into play, and I assume they want to save that for the main game, right? Well, this is the preview, so maybe the limited edition will probably give us an indication on how Fulland met up with Dine, as well as the game will as well. I do think so as well, right? But I like this. I like this a lot because, again, it kind of connects you with these Age of Heroes characters, right? Both Fulland and Belinda in a sense, right? Because based on the story we know right now, it feels like Belinda, I wouldn't say Belinda was a, she's the villain in all of this, separating Dine and Fulland, but she was like a third party who obviously got in the way of, Dine's love for Fulland, of course, right? Again, it happens. That's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. Between a love triangle, somebody loses out anyways, unless you go for a polyamorous relationship, but that's besides the point. But no, I kind of like that we got an idea of the origin story, because that's one thing I really loved about, like, of course, what Amori did with Knights of Fianna, and of course also with, Argonaut to an extent as well, right? Of course, with Argonaut, we started off with them just, traveling together, Argonaut and Fina, that is, and then they developed slowly into these characters that they are. Same with the Knights of Fianna. Of course, we saw Dim going from, of course, being absolutely broken when the Knights of Fianna were slaughtered initially, to, of course, building up his own Fianna Knights as well, technically, with the likes of the, the brothers, of course, right? Like the Alf brothers, I think it was. If I recall correctly, I think it was Alf. Both the Alf brothers. Then you, of course, had Lazar, you had Alkitien, you had, of course, the bringbacks of Galmus and and so on and so forth, Yuri, Elmina. So in that sense, I'm glad that we got an origin story right here. The preview gave us an idea of Fulland and Belinda, made us more interested in those two characters, right? I think that's fantastic in my personal opinion, and I'd love to see, of course, how it continues to develop thanks to the game and also potentially the short story we're going to be getting alongside it. But yeah, let me know if you guys are looking forward to, of course, the game. Like I said, are you guys going to be picking it up or what? Let me know in the comment section down below. Of course, once we get the short story, I'm assuming people will be getting the limited edition, and once we do get the short story, I expect a translation to pop up, and we will be there to, of course, talk about it and, of course, make a video about it as well. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel for more content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Ciao. Bye bye.